Hey folks, Eric Gray, Focused Fishing Guide Service. Got another video fishing report for you for Table Rock Lake. It is Tuesday, January 2nd. Happy New Year to all you guys out there. Man, it's cold. It's been cold the last 3 days, and don't look like we're going to get above freezing till the weekend, but have managed to make it out. Made it out a couple of times, actually 3 times last week, more than I thought I would. Have not been since Saturday, but it's also not been above freezing since Saturday. Actually, I didn't even get above freezing Saturday, but did manage to get out and get a little fishing in. As far as our lake level is concerned, we are at 910.1, which is basically 5 feet down below normal pool. Still not exactly sure why, but suspicions are that they have lowered the lake this far just to compensate for all the electricity they need for the heat and everything else, so for people to run their furnaces and whatnot. As far as our water temperature is concerned, when I was out on Saturday, started the day at around 49.5. Never really saw anything much over 51. Saw 51.1 a couple of times in a couple of creeks. But as of the end of last week, we were right at 50 degrees, so we have dropped a little bit. I think this really cold weather we've had the last 3 days has probably impacted it pretty hard too. I would guess by this weekend you're probably going to be 45 to 47 degrees. I doubt it'll be much colder than that, but who knows? I mean, there's ice in the creek behind me, so there very well could be ice in some of the creek arms and Table Rock, and it could have cooled off quite a bit more than that. We'll find out. I'm going to get out there a couple of times towards the end of the week this week as well. As far as the fishing is concerned, did fish the lower end one time last week. It was good, not great. It was kind of a weird week. Just kind of a weird week. One day you'd catch them real good, the next day you wouldn't. A lot of that's probably weather related, and some of it is probably just the amount of current they've been running, because they were running 4 units at some times, and other times they were running only 1 or 2. And now they've slowed the generation down quite a bit. They're down to, they're running 3 or 4 units at times, at peak times, and then shutting it off during slack times. But if you guys are coming down, say you're going to fish the lower end of the lake, best bite we had down there last week was definitely still deep. Catching numbers and some better quality fish, deep fishing. Most of them last week, during the week, we caught them. One trip we caught them real good in the creek arms. The next trip we couldn't get bit in the creek arms. We had to go out onto the flats. But we were catching them in the creek arms, in the deep trees. Overall depth didn't matter. We were basically looking for shad hanging around trees that topped off around 35 to 50 feet deep. And it seemed like if you could find the shad, you would find fish around them and you could get them to bite. Doing really well with the shad-shaped worm on a drop shot, doing well with the Yamamoto cut tail, doing well with the Chomper's drop shot worm, and doing well with the UV drop shot worm. Caught a few on a scuba spoon as well. If you're not finding them in the trees, head out onto the main lake, onto those gravel flats and long gravel points. That seemed to be where we'd find them if they weren't in the trees. And most of those fish were actually holding pretty tight to the bottom, anywhere from about 35 to 50 feet deep, almost exclusively on gravel. Didn't really find anything on rock, using the same baits, shad shape, cut tail, and the scuba spoon, catching them out doing that. Did catch a few on Saturday on a stick bait. Fished lower end towards Kimberling City on Saturday, and caught them on a mega bass, Vision 110. Didn't really throw the McStick, but I mentioned the McStick would work as well. Most of those fish suspended about 6 to 8 feet down, and those fish seem to be over about 10 to 25 foot of water, holding the boat in about 30, casting toward the bank, and working it fairly fast. Only letting it pause for about 5 to 10 seconds seemed to be all you need to pause it to get a bite on those. But caught a few doing that, and then caught a few on a spider jig as well that same day. Those fish are on the channel swing type stuff, the same stuff we've been catching on for about the last month, the kind of ledgy channel swing type banks where you've got a stair step ledge. Throwing the Jewel 5/16 Pro Spider Jig, Okeechobee Blue, Green Pumpkin Candy, and Peanut Butter and Jelly were all good colors. Did better with a beaver as a trailer versus the speed crawl when we were out there. Just, I think high pressure had a lot to do with it. They wanted that speed, or didn't want the speed crawl as much as they wanted the beaver. Go up into the Kimberling City area. Deep bite's still really good up there as well, and same sort of deal. One day you catch them in the trees, the next day you catch them out on the gravel points, so it's just a matter of process of elimination. Again, it doesn't matter the overall depth on the trees. You're looking for tree tops that are around 35 to 50 feet deep and looking for shad around them. If there's shad around those trees, you will find some fish out there. Catching them on the shad-shaped worm, Yamamoto cut tail, UV drop shot worm, the Chomper's finesse worm, all on a drop shot rig. Catching a few on the scuba spoon as well. Did not do quite as good. Still not catching them on the ice bait. I'm not really exactly sure why, but I think water needs to get a little bit colder and we'll start catching them on that ice bait a little bit more consistently. Same deal on the gravel points out there, 35, 55 feet deep, right on the bottom. You'll have one lift up, hook them, you'll get 2 or 3 more to follow, and you usually catch 2 or 3 out of those groups. Stick bait bite was pretty good up there as well. Again, Vision 110 was the one I was throwing the most. Didn't really throw a McStick at all, but I imagine they'd eat the McStick as well. Doing really good with Tennessee shad and LG bone on the Vision 110. And again, those fish seem to be suspended 6 to 10 feet down and relating more towards points in Kimberling City than they were, say, out on a bank or out on the main lake. Seem to be more towards points in the creek arms. Anywhere you had shad that was up a little bit shallower, you could catch them on that. Caught them on a Jewel Pro Spider jig. Again, ledgy type banks seem to be best. 5/16 was better than 7/16 last week. Green pumpkin candy, Okeechobee blue, watermelon candy. And that day we actually caught them better with a speed crawl than we did with the beaver as a trailer. So it's kind of depends on the weather conditions. That's what you're going to need to have tied on, either a speed crawl or a beaver for your trailer. Didn't really catch them as good on a crankbait last week. I think the day I was out, that was on Thursday, I guess it was, when I was up around Kimberling. We didn't really have the wind. Didn't have as much wind as we did over the weekend. Probably should have thrown a crankbait more over the weekend, but we really didn't catch them that good on a crankbait. Caught a few on a wiggle wart and a few on the Curve 55 and a few on the rock crawler, but it wasn't really a great pattern that day. I think you still need a little bit of wind on those channel swing banks to get bit on a crankbait. Go up into the James, and I really didn't make it much past Ants Creek last week. Had a trip on Ants Creek and basically stayed right there in Ants Creek. And did catch a few on a crankbait that day, but not a whole lot. The best crankbait bite is probably still up the James. Crankbait or stickbait or jig would be my 3 choices up there. I'm sure you can catch them deep as well, but I would probably start with a stickbait, either the Megabass Vision 110 or the Silent 110. LG bone is always a really strong color for me up there because it does have that chartreuse on it. And look for those fish to be suspended just like they are everywhere else, 6 to 10 feet down, over 25, 15 to 30 feet of water, and basically let it pause, a shorter pause if it's colder, longer pause. This time of year we usually use a little bit shorter pause. Catching a few on that. I would say a wiggle wart, I would say a rock crawler, and a Curve 55 on those channel swing type banks is probably going to be a strong option if you've got wind. And then a Jewel Pro Spider jig as well. Okeechobee blue, green pumpkin candy, typical colors, and then play with your trailer. If it's a high pressure day, I'd put a beaver on. Not a high pressure day, I'd put the Zoom Speed Craw on as a trailer. And go up into the White River, and I didn't really make it up the White River last week. Got a trip booked to go up there this week. We'll kind of confirm all this, but talking to a few guys who've been up there and basically knowing the White River like I do, I would say deep bite is probably really still strong up there, and it's going to be like it is all over the rest of the lake. You're going to find one day they're going to be biting better in the trees than the other day. It seems like the days they're running a lot of water, the main lake bite is better than the bite in the creek arms. But I checked the creek arms, 35 to 55 foot deep on the trees. Don't worry about the overall depth. Drop shot, either a shad shaped worm, cut tail worm, the UV finesse worm, UV drop shot worm, or the Chomper's drop shot worm. Again, I'd look for those fish to be over top of trees, 35 to 55. If the shad are in the creeks, that's where the fish are going to be. The shad are out on the main lake, start looking for them on those flats, and they'll be 35 to 50 feet deep on those flats. Same sort of baits. Jewel Scuba Spoon will work out there on those flats and the trees as well. And if it's cold enough, I will fish that ice bait quite a bit this week and see if we can't start getting bites on that. That Rapala jigging wrap has been a good bait this time of year. Stick bait bite, I'm sure, is phenomenal up there. It's always one of the best areas of the lake. That area from Baxter through Shell Knob has always been a really strong area to throw a stick bait. Megabass Vision 110 or a Spromic stick. Again, looking for those fish suspended, probably over anywhere from about 15 to 30 foot of water. And I would work points if they're running water. If they're not running water, I'd work more of the banks, but most likely you'll catch them on points up there. Crankbait bite should be going if you got a little bit of wind up there as well. Rock crawler, wiggle wart, and the Curve 55, all those should be working good up there. And of course a jig. You can always catch fish up the White River on a jig in the creek arms. Start looking for those fish to be moving back into the creeks and following the shad. Jewel Pro Spider jig, probably 5/16, up to a 7/16, just depending on how deep you're going to have to fish. Typical colors, Okeechobee Blue, Green Pumpkin Candy. Match that up with either a beaver or with a speed crawl. You should be doing good. Guys, it is the first week of January. Had a great 2017. Thank you guys for all that. Really busy. I already got a bunch of trips booked for 2018, which is awesome. Remember, guys, we're going to be running winter rates all the way through February. This weather's going to move out this week, and it will get warmer after we can start fishing again. I actually had a buddy of mine who's a guide called me a wuss because I didn't want to go out when it was not going to break 18 and the wind chill wasn't going to get out of the single digits yesterday. So it is what it is. I guess I'm getting older. I guess I'm turning into a wuss, but I've caught enough of these little green fish that I don't need to freeze to death to prove anything to anybody. But guys, it's going to warm up and the fishing's actually going to get great. We probably will have a shad kill if this weather keeps up like this, and it's going to turn that stick bait on like you won't believe. Got a great deep bite already starting, and that's going to only continue to get better. Crankbait bite will probably stick around for a while, and then it'll get good again towards the end of February. And of course, the jig bite's always good. We can always catch them on a jig. But if you guys want to learn how to do any of those techniques, just want to come down and have fun, remember, like I said, we're running those winter rates all the way through the end of February. You can save some money. Actually, since the rates went up this year, you're actually saving almost $100 by doing it by the end of February. But got a lot of openings in February, got a few openings in January. If you guys are thinking about going, want to go out and catch some fish, maybe learn how to do something a little bit different, give me a call. It's Focused Fishing Guide Service. You can reach me at 417-860-4743. Hit my website, focusedfishing.com. Shoot me an email or book online. Either way, I'll get back to you as soon as I can. This time of year, I usually get back to you within a few minutes, at most a couple of hours. But guys, you need to get out there. We need to get out there and catch some fish. You want to learn how to do some of these different techniques. It's a great time to do it. Plus, you can save a little bit of money. Guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Can't wait to hear from you. We'll see you on the water.